Hi, I'm Mary Burke Kelly. I'm a senior faculty teacher for Acutonics here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. And I've created this video to be a session that I've been giving people long distance during the COVID virus isolation for fear, anxiety, and the feeling of being out of control. This is a really big factor for people. Some of it is triggering things from their past. So this is a session that I've been giving and I've gotten successful results from it. I even received it myself. And so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this this is designed for Acutonics students and practitioners of Acutonics. You can take what you want from this, or you can just do the whole session. A lot of the rationale behind what I'm choosing, the extraordinary vessels, the forks and all that, are in a part 1 video that will also be available. But this is basically going to be the session. So if you have tinctures, you might start out and open your session with tinctures to call everything into the here and now and the present. That's always a nice thing to do. Now, of course, the very first thing that we always do in Acutonics is to ground the person. We're going to want to ground with 2 low ohms if you have them. If you don't have 2 low ohms, then you use what you have. You use your ohm unison, but we're using ohm low because it's going to really help everyone feel safe, secure, give us roots, and help us feel grounded during this time of a lot of insecurity and anxiety. So you go ahead and let your client hear the ohms, and then come down and let's do kidney 3, which is great green. And I'll put things on the video of where to find these because it's going to be hard for you and me to explain on this little dummy. Use my helper here, but you could be doing this live to family members that are in your household that you're stuck in isolation with, or you could, if you're sending this long distance, don't forget to make a body template and treat the template or the hologram of the person. There's a separate video on how to send these things long distance. I won't take the time to explain that in this particular video. But we're going to go ahead and ground like you always do on Great Ravine, Kid 3, and then we're going to take it down to Gushing Spring, Kid 1. Now, one of the things this is doing by using these 2 low ohms on Kid 3 is, yes, we're using it as a grounding point, but it also happens to be the source point for the kidney. So, as I mentioned, and now I'm going to bring this down from Kid 1 to Gushing Spring, Kid 3 to Kid 1, so I'm grounding here, all right? So one of the reasons why using Kid 3 as part of our grounding point here is because Kid 3 happens to be the source point for the kidney, and in Chinese medicine, all your fears, whether it's fear of the unknown, fear of the future, fear of getting sick and dying from this virus, whatever your fears are going to be contained in the kidney and the bladder channels. Okay, so by putting these low ohms on Great Ravine Kid 3 before we come down to Kid 1, we're doing a lot to bring down all that yang, all that yang up in our head where we're thinking and analyzing and being afraid, and we're also making sure that we're just grounding and balancing and rooting out all that fear and insecurity using the kidney source point as one of our grounding points. So, okay, so I've grounded this person on, her name's going to be today, I guess, Susie Smith. Or if somebody would like to submit names for my dummy, that'd be great, okay? Now, if you don't have a dummy and you're sending this long distance, you just do it as if the person is there. You pretend they're there. but I have this dummy to try and illustrate. So I've given this person a very good grounding with 2 low ohms. And now I'm going to go on to the Hwatu Jaji points. And my first layer is going to be the mid-ohm with the mid-zodiac or the purple fork. So if you've taken level 1, you should have these, all right? Why I'm using this, and I'm going to go down these Hwatu Jaji points 3 times with whatever method you use, weaving or going straight down and going right through the sacrum. And I'm doing this because not only does this combination of ohm and zodiac relax and sedate the mind, but relax and sedate the muscles. So it's relaxing and sedating the mind and the muscles. And think about this purple zodiac fork, what it represents. The purple zodiac fork is the Earth on her approximately, corresponds to the sound of her on her 26,000 year revolution through all those constellations. Now, if you were 26,000 years old, wouldn't you have seen everything? Wouldn't you be really the wise old crone? So the Earth, in her zodiac form, has seen many pandemics come and go. She's seen famine, she's seen war, she's seen everything. So part of what this is doing is to help the person gain some perspective, some long-term perspective, and we're putting it all through all their organ systems, their entire nervous system, as we go down, and we're basically, addressing or programming them throughout their body, mind, spirit, emotions here with the zodiac ohms. So it's going to help them with that feeling of being overwhelmed. A lot of times when you use this on the Hwatu Jajis, they can come away and feel like, gee, I just don't know why I was so overwhelmed by all that. I feel so much better, all right? So we use that. I do that 3 times. And then my next layer for this particular session is going to be, if you have it, the mid-ohm, the gold one, with Chiron, mid-Chiron. Some of you might not have the Chiron. If you don't have the Chiron, you can use other forks. But if you have it, we use the mid-ohm and the Chiron, and I'm doing this because this is going to heal on all levels here. It's going to heal, even if there's memories from the person's past about times of being out of control, or times of seeing maybe death in the family and feeling out of control in helping that person, or if it's triggering healing crisis that the person has had themselves years ago. This virus is triggering a lot in a lot of people. So in this way, it's addressing that, it's healing like all those wounds. And in another respect, it's giving us courage, because if you look at the myth or the mythology of Chiron, he went to his death willingly. So there's a certain amount of courage in this combination when you're using it. So that's going to help us a little bit there. And also, it's addressing this particular COVID-19 virus from the aspect of it being a virus that has jumped from one species to another. We use the Chiron quite a bit, Chiron ohm quite a bit, with different pathologies that may be interspecies related. And that basically comes from Chiron, the idea of Chiron being, like half horse, half man kind of thing. So it corresponds to that. Okay, so I've done the Hwatu Jajis and the sacrum 3 times with the Om Chiron, all right? My last layer that I'm going to put on here is going to be Mars Venus. Okay, so we have our red Mars and we have our pink Venus, all right? And I'm going to go down this because what does this do? Well, first of all, it includes the courage of Venus and the love of Mars. Mars and Venus work very, very well on PTSD, on anxiety, on all that kind of stuff because of the courage of Mars and the love of Venus together. Also, this is a perfect fifth, which is really, really hard to get with planetary sounds, a perfect fifth, and it gives us perfect yin, perfect yang. So it's just total perfect harmony that we're going to leave this nervous system, we're going to leave all these organ systems here, programming in perfect harmony, perfect balance. And that is the goal of our sessions anyway, is to put the person into perfect balance and harmony, and then everything kind of heals itself energetically. So those are my 3 layers that I've put on the Watu Jaji points and the sacrum. The next thing I'm going to go to is I'm going to go to the back kidney points. They are important because, as I mentioned, the back kidney, the kidney is where we store the emotion of fear. And the whole, you know, the kidney and the bladder are partners, the meridians. One is yin, the other is yang. And that's where we get our whole thing about, I was so scared I peed my pants, okay? So the kidney points, what I'm going to use here and how you would find them, and I'll probably insert some pages here with pictures of where they are because of the disadvantages of doing a video here. So, but you would find where their hips end, okay? So you find the hips and you come across to the vertebra, and that happens to be the 3rd lumbar vertebra, and you're going to come up 1 vertebra to where it's between the 2nd, you know, at the bottom of the 2nd. Okay, so you're between the 2nd and the 3rd. That happens to be due 4. Mingmen, Fire Gate, it happens to be the spark plug for the 2 kidneys. And then if you go about 1 inch to 1.5 inches over, I'd say 1.5 inches for Americans, and 1.5 inches over to the other side, on each side of that due 4 is going to be your urinary bladder, or bladder 23. So this is the back shoe point for the kidney. This is where we're going to come in and we're going to give the kidney, we're going to build it up because we're going to give it a lot of courage and get rid of that fear. And so what I find is very, very effective for this is I'm going to start with low. If you don't have low, you use medium, you use whatever you have. So I'm going to use low Mars for all the courage, all right, and the yang. This COVID virus may be a very yin, damp, moist virus, and it's attacking people who are low in yang a lot harder. So we really are wanting to build up the yang here of the kidney and the courage of the kidney, okay? And my building fork is the dark green from level 1, low, Earth Day. Okay, so we put these together, and I'm going to do 3 times on UB23 on the left. Now there I'm talking to the left kidney, okay, and I'm building up and taking away all that fear there. So we're getting courage, we're giving yang, and I'm going to do it, not at least maybe 3 times on the right UB23 or bladder 23 to give the right kidney all that courage. And then I'm going to come in and I'll be doing it 3 times on do 4 Mingmen, because that happens to be the spark plug for the 2 kidneys, okay? So I'm going to do all this with low. I'm picking low forks because these are a lot of deep-seated fears, all right? So these are very deep-seated fears. Now, if you don't have low, you use medium. If you don't have all these, another thing that you can put here is you can also put Venus, Mars, if you want to substitute Venus and Mars here. So that's really up to you and how you feel. And then I'm going to come in with my high frequency Mars and Earth Day. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I get this in the fields over those kidney points a little bit, okay? Because some of this stuff is frozen in the fields, especially emotionally. So I'm directing it to the kidney and the kidney fear and the kidney yang, but I'm also making sure that I'm coming in from the etheric end of it, all right, and handling it that way. Okay, so we've done that. Now, what I have done with this session is I've added cord cutting and cauterization. Okay, so cords, should probably do a separate video on, you could do a whole class on cords maybe, but basically cords are energetic ties that we have between us and other people, between us and events, between us and organizations. I've done things like cords between a person and the Catholic Church or a company that they work for or used to work for, whatever. So there's all these natural cords that run all the time, but there are cords that you don't want to have because they're holding you back from going forward, okay? So if you do cord work, the way I do it is, that has been effective for about 4 years, is I'm a pendulum person. I dowse for them. I actually take a pendulum and I'll ask to see. So the saying that we're saying here is I would be asking to see, or you don't have, so I find it individually, like on the back chakras and the front chakras with a pendulum. You can do any method you want to do if you want to individualize this, because if you're individualizing it, these are actual cords that are running between the person, and it could be events or things that they've had in the past that's really having them not move forward, or the fears being triggered by this COVID virus pandemic situation. So you can individualize them using your own methods of confirmation. If you're not a confirmation person, I would say that for the COVID virus, at the least, if you're going to cut cords and cauterize them, you should be doing the root chakra, because that relates to survival. Being scared about death and just surviving during this. You should make sure that you do the sacral chakra, because that relates to the financial aspect of this. There's a lot of people who have a lot of fear of they're going to have to collect unemployment, or they don't know how they're going to make money or whatever. So there's a lot of where they're in a job that's 100% commission and they can't sell. All right, so there's a lot of fear about finances. I would do the solar plexus, because the solar plexus chakra relates to power and control, and especially if we feel right now that we're out of control, that our life is out of control, our job is out of control, everything's out of control. And I would definitely do the heart. With some other people, I have found cording like in the back or the front of the knee chakras, those minor chakras, because for them individually, there was one person that had stuff in the throat because it was affecting how she was communicating, okay? But I would say at least do those 4. Now, the way that I do cords, and everybody does cords differently, so do it how it works for you. But I'm just an Acutonics practitioner. So I use only sound. So what I'm using is high frequency and high frequency Uranus. So basically this is your longer of the 2 ohm forks in the high frequency set, and this is high frequency Uranus. And I use these to shatter the cords, and what I find is They will come into the chakra. The cords really, each chakra is associated with a different auric field around the body. And when I cut them off at the root, remember, acutonic sessions are about going to the root cause of the imbalance. So the root of all these cords that may be in the causal field, the auric field, you know, all the fields, each chakra is associated with one. If I cut it off at the root and cauterize it at the root, it gets all that stuff in the field automatically. This is part of our wonderful segment, interdimensional wave time that we have here. Okay, so what I'm saying in my head here is I'm saying an intention is 90% of this. Is I use some cutting action like this. You can, if you want to let Uranus work for you, you don't have to do that. You could do this. You can do whatever comes to you as far as your technique in the field. But I happen to do cutting, and what I'm saying here is I'm saying that I'm cutting past, present, and future cords between, and you put use the person's name like Susie Smith. If it's long distance, you know, in Las Vegas, Nevada, but I'm cutting past, present, future cords between Susie Smith and the fear, anxiety, and lack of control that's associated with pandemic illness and its emotional, physical, and financial effects. So why am I leaving it so broad? You do not want to limit the universe here on this interdimensional stuff. You don't want to have to say COVID-19, because maybe this does relate to other triggers for the person, other events. So we're keeping it more general. All right, so now I come into the back of this root chakra, and what I'm going to use the Nibiru high frequency. Now I come into the back of this root chakra, and what I'm going to use the Nibiru high frequency with the high frequency number 2 sun. So what that means is I'm using the shorter of the 2 suns and the Nibiru, because that way this gives me a 5th, right? And so I activate the Nibiru first, and then I activate the sun, and that gives me the 5th sound. Okay, so what is this doing? First of all, this is going to cauterize any wounds from cutting the cords at that chakra and in the fields. And it's going to repattern things with the Nibiru. So it's repatterning, it's restoring. These are some of the key words for Nibiru, or some people pronounce it Nibaru. So it's repatterning, it's restoring, and it's filling empty spaces with golden light, which is a great thing after you cut cords, because that way they don't reinstate themselves. All right, so I do that 3 times, and I'm going to do that for all the chakras in the back that there are cords coming into. And I said at a minimum for this fear and anxiety and lack of control, I would do those 4 chakras as I mentioned. So, you know, when I'm doing this, I'm usually saying that I'm doing these things, that I'm cutting the cords at the back of the chakra and its associated fields. And by having that intention, it's not only the physical field of the person, but it is also in field and wave phenomenon that's going to go into any fields where the person has, you know, these issues. So we're going to continue our full session of Acutonics for fear, anxiety, and lack of control during this pandemic. And what I've basically done here is I've turned my client over, or my family member over, so they're face up now. It's an anterior treatment now. We've already done the posterior, okay? So now we're on the front. So it doesn't really matter what order you do this in, but after you've turned the client over, So I don't forget to do any of the cords coming into the back chakras. I usually cut and cauterize any cords relating to this on the back chakras. They will be different. I have kind of found in my experience that they'll be, if you're individualizing it and locating them for the individual, there could be a lot more on the back because the issue is really corded from things in the person's past. They could be different on the front because they're coming into the chakras on the front because it has to do with the present and going forward, right? So the first thing I do is I go ahead and I cut and cauterize the cords on the front chakras before I go into the rest of the nitty-gritty of the session. And so I would say if you're not individualizing these cords on the front, at least cut for past, present, and future cords that are between Susie Smith and, you know, the association of fear, fear of the unknown, fear and anxiety connected with pandemic illness and its effects on financial, physical, and emotional issues, all right, or however you want to use your intention. And I would at least cut and cauterize the root chakra, okay. I would do, again, the sacral chakra for financial self-worth type issues that are going on, root for survival, the front of the solar plexus for the feeling of lack of control, and the heart for the emotional aspects. It's up to you whether you want to add throat chakra because of all the communication changes or that kind of thing, or people are being cut off from family members and things. So it's up to you, but I just wanted to say that I go ahead and do that before I start to do before I forget, let's say. I did is I went ahead and I went to the heart source point and tried to quell any fear of the unknown and anxiety. And I used 2 mid forks. If you want to use low, if you have them, you know, just use whatever you want to do. But what I used is I used mid Pluto, which is the black one out of level 3, and I used mid Venus, okay, because together these two, what are they doing? All right, Pluto represents fear, fear of the unknown, fear of hidden things. It also represents control. There's an element of feeling out of control or lack of control with this pandemic. It also represents death, physical death, okay? So a lot of the pandemic issues are right here corresponding to the archetype of Pluto. And then I used Venus because Venus is about love. It is very yin, so it can quell or diminish all this Plutonian fear, lack of control. So this is going to quell and diminish the unknown fears. All right, so that's what I used. If you don't have these, okay, you can use Mars and Venus. All right, because the courage of Mars will offset, you know, with Venus and all that. So use Mars and Venus if you don't have this. So I went to the heart source point, spirit gate, which is on the baby finger side, under the pisiform bone. Rather than show you this on my own hand, I guess I can do that a little bit, but basically I'm going to hopefully be editing this, but you go to the baby finger side, okay, and there is a bone that sticks out called the pisiform bone right at the inside wrist crease. And so your point where you're going to put the forks is right here on the wrist crease, but a little bit, you know, right below that bone that sticks out. So that happens to be the source point for the heart. And what's happening with all this anxiety and fear of the unknown, heart palpitations, whatever, it's a heart-related meridian thing. And so go ahead and put we activate Pluto because it's lower, and then Venus, and then put them on this heart source point, and you can go ahead and you can do that 3 times on the person's right. This is this person's right, okay? And then you can go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So you can do the heart source point 3 times with this. And this is going to really bring down all that fear of the unknown and the anxiety and that type of thing. So there, we've done that. Now I'm going to go to my extraordinary vessels. I always encourage my students to always include 2 extraordinary vessels in every Acutonics session they do, because this is what distinguishes Acutonics from just regular, this is alchemy, this is transformation, and the extraordinary vessels are where you're going to get the biggest shift for the person as far as this fear and anxiety and that type of thing, right? So this combined with the stuff you've already done on the back is what really makes it effective, right? So the 2 extraordinary vessels that I chose to use for this fear, anxiety, lack of control session is I chose the YIN WEI to help that anxiety and fear of the unknown. So on the YIN WEI, and I'll edit this with points, but the YIN WEI, the opening point is going to be this pericardium 6 or inner gate. All right, so you're going to want to that's about 3 of the client's finger widths down from the inside wrist crease right here in the midline middle of their inside arm. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, that's going to be my opening point. On your opening point is where you always put your colored fork, and then I'm going to go contralateral to its balance point. So the balance point happens to be grandfather, grandchild, spleen 4. It's where I'll put the balance. Now, just to reiterate for my beginning students, you do go ahead and activate the O first because it's the lower fork, and I've chosen to use low because I want to go deep and I want to get these deep-seated emotions here, all right, and the deep-seated anxiety. If you don't have low, you use what you have. You use mid, okay? So I'm going to use and new moon, but I'm going to be putting the colored fork is the action fork, and the colored fork has to go on the opening point of the extraordinary vessel, and then we place the balance forks that we're opening and having a conversation with the correct extraordinary vessel and not its opposite pair, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to activate the Om, activate the metallic blue new moon, put the new moon down on inner gate, pericardium 6, and put the Om on spleen 4, grandfather, grandchild. And we're going to go ahead and give the person, kind of let the vibrations dissipate until they're almost all gone, and then I'm going to do that, 2 more times. So I do things in a series of 3s. That's just me. Okay, and what this is doing is this is giving a gentle invitation to open and disperse out all those feelings of anxiety that might be stagnating the YIN WEI. Open and disperse with emotional support, the anxiety, the fears, whatever is going on in the YIN WEI. And the YIN WEI it's really a time capsule for any events that have taken place in the person's life that were so emotionally impactful that it could be affecting their emotions now. It's like a trigger, it could be a triggering. So we're in here and we're actually When the past affects the present time, you want to use the Yin Wei. Okay, that is your extraordinary vessel and emotional work when the past is affecting the person's present time. Also, like I said, it records the emotional events from the past, so we're releasing and dispersing all those if they're in there stagnating this thing. And also the other thing this has to do with is because it's inner gate, it has to do with our intimate relationships with other people. Remember, the Yin Wei is in charge of all the relationships of the different yin meridians and the yin in the body. So any intimate relations or family members, things like that, it's also affecting that. And what's so great about sound is sound on an extraordinary vessel is going to go where it needs to go. I just mentioned all those various levels of energetic healing, but the sound will go where it is needed, and that is the beauty of sound healing. So my second layer, I'm having an entire conversation with this Yin Wei that comes up through the pericardium and affects the heart, the anxiety, all those emotions, those events that are from the past that are affecting current time. So my second layer that I used was the Om. Again, I'm using low to go deep, and Chiron. Okay, because what this is going to do is this is basically going to, heal any of these things from the past and give us the courage. So I go ahead and I activate the Om first. I activate the lime green Chiron. The lime green is the action planet fork, so that goes on inner gate, pericardium 6, and the Om goes down contralateral onto that spleen 4. Okay, and you can go ahead and you can do that 3 times. So that was what I did. Now I'm going to finish my conversation with the extraordinary vessel. First, we've opened and released any of this stuff. We've healed this stuff. Now I'm going to bring it to closure or fruition. So I've chosen to use low Om with full moons. This is level 1. You should have these, all right? Well, and if you don't have low, you use mid. You use what you have, okay? So again, I'm activating the Om first because it's lower. This gives me the 6th, and then the white fork. But the white fork goes down first on that inner gate pericardium 6, and the Om goes on to the spleen 4. And what am I doing here? Okay, well, I'm giving closure to all this stuff from the past that may be triggering or affecting them in the present. I'm giving them a lot of yin to calm down all that anxiety that's making their heart go boom, 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 boom. I'm getting a feeling of nurturance and unconditional love, that kind of mothering, nurturing type of archetype, okay? So that is what I did, what I would recommend you do in the Yin Wei. I'm sure you can come up with your own stuff that will work, but this is just my suggestions. So the second extraordinary vessel that I used was the Yang Wei. And so I'm going to go on the opposite side of the body, which is over here, and the opening to the Yang Wei is just on the outside. So you find the wrist crease, the outside wrist crease. You use 3 of the clients or the person's finger widths up on the middle of that outer forearm, and that's your outer gate, and that's called Sanjiao 5 or triple warmer 5. And its balance point is over here. It would be gallbladder 41. All right, so gallbladder, and I'll put something up about where this is. Gallbladder 41. So my action or colored fork is going to go on the Sanjiao 5, the outer gate, and my other fork is going to end up going on the gallbladder 41 near the tears. And I'm using this because this is the time capsule for fear of the future. So this is what is going on right now, is everybody has a fear of the unknown, a fear of the future. So you definitely want to be using this for the COVID-19 pandemic. fears. Also, people who are paralyzed with fear, this is where it's going to be, where they can't move, they can't do things, they can't move forward because they're paralyzed with fear. This is also helps our outer boundaries, outer gate, outer boundaries. So in one aspect, it's even helping us maybe physically as far as our boundaries with the actual physical virus, with tertiary relationships. This is the extraordinary vessel that we would use for not intimate family members, but all those people where we're afraid we're going to get the virus from these people, okay? People at the grocery store, people in our church, you know, things like that. It also can help with our Wei Qi, okay? This is like a vessel that is associated sometimes with the fascia, with the Wei Qi, with that type of thing. So what did I use on here? Well, I went ahead and I did. I started with low new moon 5th again. So that's your low that's your low metallic blue. Because what I wanted to do here is kind of open and disperse any stagnation that might be in, you know, that extraordinary vessel. Release out with a gentle invitation to release out any and all fear of the future here. Okay, things that maybe there's been past behaviors or things in the past that affect the future and give us fear of the future. So this is a gentle invitation with the new moon to open and disperse that out. So I did that 3 iterations. My second level in my conversation with the Yang Wei, I used the lime green Chiron with the maroon, or whatever color you think it is, Nibiru or Nibiru. Okay, so these two together are going to heal everything, whether it's mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, on all the levels, okay, and transform things. If you don't have this, if you don't have the Nibiru, then you go ahead and you use just Chiron or whatever you have that makes sense. So I went ahead and activated, you activate the Chiron, and then the Nibiru, this is the microtone, so they're pretty close. And I put the green Chiron on the opening point of Sanjiao 5, and then I put the Nibiru on the near to tears gallbladder 41. Did that 3 times. So in other words, I've opened and dispersed this time capsule with fear of the future. I've healed it on all the levels with my 3 iterations of this interval. Now I'm going to finish my conversation with the Yang Wei, and I'm going to, again, oh no, I didn't use that. Wait a minute, correction, I didn't use that. I went ahead and I used low Mars and Venus. Okay, if you don't know low, use mid or whatever. Because what this is going to do here is this is going to give us courage and love, put us in perfect harmony as far as fear of the future goes emotionally, but also by putting Mars on the opening point, that's going to help some of my Wei Qi defense, because remember Mars has a lot to do with defending our immune system. Mars had that shield, he was the big warrior, so it's a big defender, all right? So some of this, the energy will go where it needs to go. So I put Mars on the opening point, Sanjiao 5. I put Venus on the balance point of gallbladder 41, did that 3 times, all right? So that's your 2 extraordinary vessels. So I have a tendency to add a lot of times, on my sessions, I'll add a point or something kind of at the end. Because for me, the meat of my sessions are basically the Huatujiaji points, the extraordinary vessels, chords if there's chords, and then the rest is gravy, okay? So that's just me. Okay, so there's a point that is up at the outer, this is a level 2 point, So if you have taken level 2 Acutonics, this should be in your material. It's also in the No Place Like Home book, but it's gallbladder 13. It's Benshin, it means root spirit. So I use it a lot as the spiritual root cause of an imbalance, all right? So you find this by going to the outer canthus of the eyes for the person, coming straight up to their hairline. And when you get up there, if you're treating yourself or treating someone else, you should feel little indentations right here at the hairline. And that is gallbladder 13 or Benshin. So in order to treat the root cause, the possible spiritual root cause of all this fear and anxiety, I chose to use mid-Pluto and mid-Venus. And we talked about that this is going to quell any unknown fears for the person. So I came up here and did their gallbladder 13. You got one on one side, so you can do that 3 times if you want to. You know, you let these run in. All right. And you can do the other one 3 times. All right. You do this for yourself too. So the other cool thing about this point, it is believed with some people that, you know, first emotions and things are in our blood, and we can deal with them there. And if we don't deal with them, they can go into the brain and then become part of our thinking process in our marrow. And so the gallbladder meridian does go, they're all up here, they're going across our head, our brain, okay? And gallbladder 13 happens to be the point on the head here, right before the gallbladder channel goes into the scully brain part, okay? Prior to that, it's on the face, okay? So that's believed by some people to be the point to catch these things before they go into the marrow, which is passed down through generations and part of the brain. So that's, I think, gallbladder 13, you know, which some people is maybe underutilized point, and I went ahead and added it to this, and it seemed to help the success of the session. The very last thing that I did, it doesn't have to be your last thing. You can do it somewhere else in the session. Use your own intuition. The last thing that I did is I went ahead and treated all the fields with high frequency Pluto and high frequency Venus, just to get rid of to quell all those unknown fears, feeling of a lack of control, fear of death, all that kind of stuff in the fields, because I think that's important. Now, some of you might want to do this at the beginning, after you ground, that's fine. What if you don't have Pluto and Venus? Well, then you use Mars and Venus, all right? So I went ahead and just did the fields. I'm into a lot of interdimensional and wave phenomenon, so I don't feel that I have to find exactly where in the field this is, because there are no locations. Everything is just wave phenomenon. I'd say you use whatever technique you like to use on high frequencies, because you all have such great techniques. I've observed them. So that is the nuts and bolts of the session. Now you want to, now is of course when you want to ground. Now, even if you're sending this long distance to clients or family members, you need to ground, all right? Because you've done all this, you know, high frequency wave type work, and you need to make sure you ground. And then this also reinforces helping them feel safe, again, because we ground with the kidney points, all right? So ground however you ground. If you use, you know, bowls, if you use, you know, gongs and bowls, and, you know, if you have all this stuff, and It's always nice at the very end when you're done with the forks to add the drum. That really helps root the person back to the earth and feel safe. Okay, so you want to, even if you're doing this long distance, you want to pretend that the person is here. So you go ahead, I'm using low ohms, and I recommend low ohms on a grounding like this. Okay, so you're gonna go ahead and use those same points you used in the beginning to ground. Now we're gonna use them at the end. So we're using Great Ravine, Kid 3. You can do 3 times on each one, or however you do your grounding. Everybody's a little different. The important point here is to use ohms, whatever you have. Low is better, but if you don't have them, mids are gonna work too. So use what you have. Okay, so I'm doing the Kid 3, Great Ravine. And remember, the fear is contained in the kidney. And I'm gonna come down here, and I'm gonna do kidney 1. Okay, so you ground the same way you already ground with 3 iterations. And I'm kind of the type of person where, you know, I sit down here and I have a drum. This is my drum that looks like a great big tree. This is from out in New Mexico. And the tree helps them ground. The sound helps them ground, so. And I'm kind of doing that at the same time that I'm doing their grounding points, okay? So that is kind of going on, and I have a grounding bowl down here. So I won't get into all that technique, but that would be the last thing you would do for the session. And then if you are the type of person that you like to close your session, you would close the session with your Tasha, bringing the person back to the here and now and present time, thanking for anyone that has helped in the session. Now, I'm just gonna caution you that if you have done this long distance and you've made a hologram or a body template and you've treated that template, you now need to close that. Okay, so if you've done that, go ahead and close your body template. Go ahead and step away, and you cut your own cords from the session. And so I hope that you've gotten either some tidbits that you want to add to what you're already doing or what you already know about dealing with fear, anxiety, and the sense of being out of control during this pandemic. And take bits and pieces and include it in what you already do. A lot of you people have modalities that you're already doing successfully long distance, and so just take from this what is good for you. If there is anything that does not resonate with you, then you don't use that. Okay, so but I hope this helps you. If there are any forks in this session that you don't have and you're feeling that you would like to purchase them, you can always contact me. I do give Acutonics students 10% off for joining me, and good luck during this epidemic.